Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Oscar Buzz. We are doing another tier list. We did Pixar last time. We've done Luca Guadagnino. Today, we're talking about Yorgos Lanthimos. Kind of Kindness recently came out. He's a very fascinating filmmaker, a very weird filmmaker, a peculiar filmmaker, if you will. And we all have very different takes. We encompass, I think, the three categories of people with Yorgos, except for I don't think any of us are haters. We need Thomas on for that.
No.
But we all have very different takes on Yorgos. So I'm here. I'm joined by Sam. You know who Sam is, and then we're also joined by Ronaldo, who's someone I've known for a little bit, and Sam knows a lot better than I do. But you should follow him on Letterboxd and Twitter because he's great. And yeah, let's just get into Yorgos. We're all generally fans, I think, of Yorgos.
I'm a big fan.
Sam loves Yorgos. I like Yorgos.
I like him too. I wouldn't say love, but I do like him a lot.
Yeah. Anyways, let's get into it. So he's made 9 films. One of them is My Best Friend, which Ronaldo sent to us because we initially weren't going to do it because Yorgos only co-directed My Best Friend, and also I think he's actually disowned it. Like he doesn't like it. But like he's fully distanced himself from the film. I couldn't find it anywhere on the internet to even watch. Ronaldo found it like 2 days ago, sent it to us. Sam and I just both couldn't give a fuck. So Ronaldo, you're the only one who's actually seen this.
I honestly didn't want to watch it. I was going to ask you if you were going to watch it because I noticed that you hadn't seen it yet. But then I found it and I was like, I didn't have anything to do yesterday, so I just put it on. And it was really bizarre and not like in a good way. Because like the movie starts like a 20-minute scene of like a woman and a man reenacting like her getting assaulted. Like there's this guy off screen recording them and like telling them like, oh, and now you put your hand on her and now you throw her to the ground and now you jump on her, and they like keep looking at the guy like waiting for him to tell them what to do. And like the entire movie is like that. Like there's a lot of scenes of just like people waiting, like just people telling other people what to do and them doing it. And
interesting.
Yeah, so
That doesn't sound good at all.
Okay, but it's interesting because it's very connected with a lot of early Yorgos, and even kind of that with like Sam. So Sam and I both seen Kind of Kindness. It hasn't come out yet where Ronaldo lives, but like even that kind of feels similar to some stuff with Kind of Kindness, with like power dynamics and being told what to do and all this. Like, and with a lot of his earlier films, he seems very interested with artifice and like the like play acting events. Like we see that a lot in Kinetta and Alps in particular. And it's interesting how that's kind of evolved later in his career, and I think he's definitely fine-tuned it, and it's become a bit more nuanced. But I don't know, it's interesting having the full scope of a director's work and kind of being able to track those themes. But how we do the tiers is not in the grand scheme of cinema. It's like within this director's filmography. So their best movie is an S and their worst movie is an F, and everything else is graded on that scale. So where would you put
an F?
It's okay, cool. I mean, I think it's a testament that we so desperately did not want to watch this movie that I think it's fair that it goes in there. Kinetta. So this is an interesting one. It kind of what I was saying. It's a film about like it was giving like Nathan Fielder, like it is like reenacting like events and violence and stuff like that. Like it's very interested with like humans' relationship with violence. I found it quite boring, but you could like again see kind of the inkling of some of his future stuff there. I don't know. Where are you guys with it?
I didn't like it. It was uninteresting to me, and I didn't care about what was going on. And if in a week you asked me to remember the basic plot line, I wouldn't be able to tell you.
I'm saying, yeah.
You could ask me today and I can tell you.
Yeah. It's aggressively cold in a way that is
and in a way that doesn't even feel intentional in that way. Like the coldness and like the desolate sort of atmosphere didn't like leave me with anything thinking about it. It was like, oh, that's just how it is. Like, it doesn't explain anything. It doesn't like suggest anything. So
Yeah.
it kind of
It
it feels
doesn't
flat.
And the
like
actors weren't good.
yeah, the actors were pretty awful, but it doesn't provoke anything in the way that like some of his later films do, where they are very cold and confrontational, but they're provoking things from the audience that I think make that atmosphere a bit more engaging, I guess. So
Mm,
I'd put it in D.
I
yeah.
would do the same.
Okay, cool. Dogtooth. Okay, this is Yorgos Lanthimos' best movie. I I absolutely love this film. I think it is like an excellent articulation of humans' relationship with language and how that can be manipulated, and how so like we so desperately rely on language as a fun found words are really hard language foundational construct of our lives, and I think the way that it plays with the characters not having names and the words being moved around, it's very funny in a darkly comedic way, but it I think works on a broader thematic level. It is also, and you cannot convince me that it is not, an allegory for homeschooling, and as somebody who was homeschooled, I related to it a lot, and that I'm probably the only person who related to Dogtooth a lot, but I did. Sam, you did not like this.
No, I mean, I don't think it's bad. I see what you're saying. Like, I can see how the movie is about that. I can see how someone could watch it and like resonate with that, or at least pick up on it. But I kind of didn't really associate myself with anything about it. It felt very miserable and swampy and detached. I didn't find it to be cohesive narratively or thematically. And I see, again, I see that that was the point, but if that's the point, then I don't like the point. So
Sure.
what, like that, it's not a bad film. I just found it very detaching and not in a way that I could pick up on a reason for that. It didn't, have the same universality to it that some of his later films do, despite their coldness. And again, it's definitely not his worst film. Like, I can see that it has a very clear vision behind it, and he very much executed that how he wanted to. It's very well directed, but not my thing at all. And yeah, it just, I can't connect with it. Again, not meant to be a negative. It's just so inherently not for me.
I am in the middle between you two. I like it. It's not my favorite by any means, but I think it was like the second or third movie of his that I saw, and I like it because I think for me, I prefer Yorgos when he's working with like a very high concept premise for his movies,
Mhm.
and the way that he uses that to explore like something about the human experience. Because like all of my favorite movies of his are like that, except the favorite maybe. But I like the premise. I think the actors are still like not the best, but I think that he started doing like he like that was the first movie where he got like the deadpan delivery of everything, where
Yeah,
like the tone kind of worked
it
properly
feels
for the first.
well calibrated, I guess.
Yeah, I agree with that. It definitely feels like his first established picture.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
it has a real atmosphere, and it has a very strong atmosphere and tone that I think is pretty unmistakable, to be honest. Like it feels like the start of like core Yorgos work.
Mm.
yeah, and
Um,
it's kind of insane that that's the movie that got him his first Oscar nomination, even though it wasn't
yeah,
his.
Yeah.
But yeah,
yeah, not the one that you'd pick out of a lineup, but yeah, I don't know. I just you mentioned like it's not as universal, but I find when films do like this like larger like big concepts but on a small scale type of stuff, and it does get more specific, I think those are the type of films that I do find more universally relatable and interesting because it strikes the core of something so specific, which is what I think he does here so well, rather than in some of his more recent films playing to a bit of a broader audience. I think some of his messaging and thematic work is a bit lost. So I would say S.
Oh no.
Where are you?
I would say B.
I would say C.
Can we do A?
Can we do B?
I'm okay with B.
I'll settle for B because it's like low C even, but I respect it. That's the thing. I respect the movie, but I don't like it.
This is his only one that I would put in S, and it's my favorite. I would like to have A.
I mean, it's
Sam
your
can decide.
list.
For me, it's okay.
It's your list. I don't want to
It's
stop you
our
from
list.
doing.
It's not my list. Oh, we'll put it in B for now, but we can see. Alps. This movie is boring as hell, but it's like not offensive in any way.
I think D.
I would say boring as hell. I agree. It's kind of like on the same tier as Kinetta for me, but like
Yeah.
it's better made. Like it's the production
Yeah.
value is better. You can tell that he got a budget this time, kind of.
Yeah, right. But it's very flat. It's very hard to connect with anything going on as far as the characters. I like it's the type of film where I'd like to see him return to a similar concept now in his career, where I feel like he understands his tone a bit better. And we were kind of talking beforehand. It feels weird to me that Dogtooth is in between Kinetta and Alps and not after the two of them, because it feels like with Dogtooth he really found his tone. As we said, it feels like the start of Yorgos, and then Alps just feels like a regression. If I may compare him to Taylor Swift, it's it's like how Taylor Swift found her perfect sound with Folklore and Evermore, and then immediately regressed after that with Midnight's and Tortured Poets Department. Like, just stick with that. That's anyways. Folklore and Evermore, head and shoulders above anything else.
I
he's
never
made.
thought that having a conversation about a film this uninteresting would spark a comment like that, but here we are.
I think it makes sense.
Sure,
I think
but you could apply it to so many things.
But I chose Taylor Swift
yeah.
to relate to the masses.
Sure.
I would be fine with C or D. I really don't care about this movie.
For me, it's a D.
It's a D for me too.
Okay, I'd put it above Kinetta though.
Me too.
I like it more than Kinetta.
Okay, perfect. It's like a C minus, you know.
Yeah, barely passing. Like, okay, The Lobster. This was the first Yorgos movie that I watched.
Same. No, The Favorite was the first one.
Okay, this movie's just a lot of fun. I like it a lot. I think it's one of his best works. I think it's a really perfect balance of Yorgos, where he does get that bigger budget. He is able to play with some larger concepts, but as you kind of mentioned, Ronaldo, like, I think he's at his best when he's playing with these larger concepts and then finds like this this really small microcosm of humanity to play out these broader things about the human experience. And it's his first. This was his first English language film. And I mean, performances I think are fantastic in it. It really, like, Dogtooth feels like the start of modern Yorgos. This is modern Yorgos. I
definitely.
Think. And I think I do think it's one of his strongest works.
I love it too. I think it's amazing. This is such a funny movie. My one issue is that I think the very end scene is great, but in general, the third act is not as strong as the first.
I'd agree.
And,
but the final sequence is so excellent that I think it makes up for it.
It does make up for it, but that's my only thing. The narration it's one of the only times where I can say that narration in a film was genuine and honest and used with intention. And it's really fucking funny. Like, the really, really dry tone that Rachel Weisz uses when she speaks in the narration makes me laugh, as does like the setup of this movie and the introduction to the world, especially when Colin Farrell goes to the counter and she's like, "So are you gay or are you straight?" And he's like, "Is there a bisexual option?" And she goes, "No, we terminated that last year." That was so fucking funny to me. But yeah, no, full of lines like that. It's so good. Colin Farrell, as always, is incredible. It has such good writing. It's so memorable. And yeah, I would put this in A. I think this is absolutely great movie. And it really, to me, felt like Yorgos. Look, it's going to look bad for me to not like any of his Greek language films and only like the ones that are in English. But this to me was the kickoff. And from here on out, I love him so much. So this gets an A for me.
Well, for me, it's actually it was the first movie of his that I ever saw, and after I fell in love with him, and that kind of faded a little after. But this is maybe still my favorite of his movies, and I disagree with you too because the reason why I love it so much is the third act, because it
Interesting.
shows
Interesting.
what I like about it is how it shows like how people are never satisfied with anything that they have because like the people inside the hotel are like wanting to be outside, and then when you're outside and you're like people who are in the hotel and are forced to fall in love with each other, they don't want that and they want to be free, and then when they're free to fall in love they want to fall in love with someone. And then it's like the thing of like I don't know, I've never been in love, but like the how it shows love and how it shows like people thinking that they have to have something in common in order to be together, and how the ending kind of confirms that, but you don't really know because I don't think that they are going to be like together forever. It's like a good
No.
test for people to like see if they are romantics or not, to see if they believe in what happens at the end. But I just think it's a really great concept. It's executed really well. I love the performances. Like he finally got people who could deliver like his vision of what he wanted to do. I
That
love
might be what
Rachel
it was
Weisz.
for me
I think
too.
Yeah, and I think this is
so. Yeah,
I've talked with Sam and just how we kind of differently view cinema, and like I appreciate good performances, but I am far more concerned with like what the director is doing and how like the themes are being executed and everything like that. Like if that's good, I don't really mind what the performances are doing.
for me,
I'm
it's
very
like in a case by
focused.
case basis. Because
That's
last
fair.
night
Yeah.
I was watching the Doom Generation by Greg Araki, and like the actors in that
Yeah.
movie are not good. But like I can see what he was going for, and I think it works in that context, and that movie is great. But then like there are some movies where it is needed, so it's like it depends on
That's
the
totally
movie.
fair.
Yeah. It
I'm
depends
just
for me too.
I'm very director brained and like very focused on that. And obviously, if you're a director, you have to direct the performances. But
Yeah. Well,
I
Trevor,
don't know.
brief example, like Jean Dielman specifically, like the actor who plays her son is not very good. Like,
No, but I
and it's
just could
interesting,
not care less.
but I couldn't care less because everything
Yeah,
else that's happening is mind blowing.
perfect.
But
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly. I would. I mean, anything that we put above Dogtooth, I'm going to disagree with because that's my favorite of his films. But I would put this in A.
yeah, me
For
too.
me, it's an S, but since you just said it, you can put it an A. That's fine.
Wait, I'd settle for S too. I think either one is fine.
Let's leave it in A for now, and then we can revisit it at the end and see what we
Okay.
want to throw into
Okay.
S. The favorite.
My favorite.
This is one where I weirdly don't have that much to say other than it's just really well executed, solid film. Like it feels like Yorgos. I mean, until Poor Things, I'd say aside from Poor Things, this is his most populist film. Weirdly, despite a lot of the stuff that happens within the film. But I mean, yeah, again, kind of mirroring what we were saying about The Lobster, like just really well directed and calibrated performances that just work within his vision. And it's interesting seeing him play with like history because this is the only film that is like based on a true story. And isn't for the most part something of his own creation. Obviously, the books and stuff that it was based on, but I don't know. I feel like a story adapting from history is very different from adapting from another medium, and it's interesting to see how his style transfers over to the historical
It's the
genre.
first time that he didn't write it.
Yeah, which I think is an interesting tonal shit. Like you can definitely feel it. I think. And there are moments where I think it works, and others where I do think it kind of clashes with this direction. But that's just me.
For me, it would be like if it wasn't The Lobster, this would be my favorite of his movies because it's probably like the least weird, like the most straightforward movie that he's made, and I think that's fine because he finds the weirdness mostly in the style with like the fisheye lenses and all of that, and I just love I love gay people.
There's no other film where Rachel Weisz could shove her fist in Olivia Colman's mouth, and it just exactly. And
Yeah, and
like it's just so real, and like her eating so much cake, like she just shoves that shit like down her throat, like eating 5 slices at a time and then vomiting and then going immediately back to eat more cake, like so real. Queen Anne is so real. Like I
Do you
know
relate to Queen Anne?
yes, I do. I think she's iconic. Like she's so poorly behaved and demanding, but like so many of the things that she says are
A
like
toddler.
jaw-droppingly hilarious, and it feels like the precursor to Bella Baxter. Like this is Bella Baxter in an old woman form. Like this is if Bella Baxter and the Hannah Shigula character were one in Poor Things. And Olivia Colman is just so good. Her performance is so big and insane, but you always like get to the crux of how she's feeling, and this battle that she essentially orchestrates between Emma Stone and Olivia and Rachel Weisz is so intense. And I love how the film ends, because even if it is his most straightforward movie, it actually gives us a challenging and thought-provoking ending that is very artistically done. So for me, this is Yorgos's best film. I love a lot of them, but this for me has always been a favorite. I think I've seen it like 7 times or something like that.
me
And
too.
yeah, it's so rewatchable. It's so funny.
It's
The
interesting.
And it's so
costumes.
quotable.
This is not one that I find myself drawn to. Like I like it a lot as a film, but I don't know. I'm never really drawn to rewatch it.
When it
I
came
love it
out,
so
I was
much.
obsessed with this movie. And like I always have a movie every year that is like that for me, and in 2018 it
Yeah.
was the favorite. I like ever since the trailer came out, I actually my favorite in the movie is not Olivia, but Rachel. I love Rachel
Mm.
so much. I was rooting for her to win that year, and I was so mad that it did not mad really because I like Regina, but I just really like it's a really human movie, probably like his most human movie because as you were talking about Olivia Colman's character, and it's like she's like a very tragic character because like we always like the all of her children dying and she's always so alone, and the fact that she grew up like being raised to be the queen, and so she's basically useless because everyone always did everything for her, and now that she's older and everyone like the way that she's treated because of her position is like a very self-fulfilling thing because the way that the people treated her made her that way, and now because of that they treat her even worse.
Mm,
Yeah,
yeah,
for sure,
that's
for sure.
true. I love it so much. I love the symbolism with the bunnies. I love the costumes. Oh my god. That's the egregious thing. Why didn't this get costumes? Absolutely ridiculous. Emma Stone's outfits in this movie are amazing. Every single one of them. Loved.
And the way that they use fabric to yeah, because like I think they made all of her costumes out of denim, which was supposed like to be like a working class fabric, and they still used it for like this old I don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's very smart custom design. And I'm okay with Black Panther winning. Sandy Powell has enough Oscars.
That's true. That's true.
All right, where are you guys putting this?
S.
Since you said that S should be the best and F should be the worst, since I already said my favorite is the Lobster, I will put it in A.
I would put it in B, so this averages out to A.
Perfect.
We'll have to find in S, but there we go. All right, Killing of a Sacred Deer. This is a film that I love a lot. This is probably my second favorite outside of Dogtooth. I think this is probably his best work tonally. It immediately pulls you in to such a strange atmosphere where absolutely nothing that happens feels correct or normal or right, but it all like resonates, I think, on a very deeply human level where we can be watching things that feel so detached from our lives, but find the little pieces and like slivers of humanity in them to grab onto. And I think it's such an interesting relationship that he plays with his audience, where he's like, it feels like he's keeping us at arm's length and like holding us like as far as possible off the cliff, but still holding us above the cliff. And then we're just like riding that tension the entire time throughout the film. and it isn't even like an explosion. It's like this like slow simmer the whole time. That like almost like you know, a frog being cooked on a frying pan, right? Where you don't realize that you're being cooked the whole time. So yeah, I don't know. I just think it's a masterwork in like tonal and atmospheric filmmaking.
Definitely, and it has such a good script. I mean, the revelation scenes between Colin Farrell and Barry Keoghan are
Yeah.
shocking. I remember watching it for the first time and my jaw being on the floor. So memorable. I do need to see it again. It's been a minute, but love this one so much. It birthed the freak of Barry Keoghan, and
Yeah.
now
I
we
mean, you're
can't
talking
get
about
out of it.
revelation.
Yeah, I
Like
mean, we
Barry Keoghan
can't
was a revelation in this.
we can't get out of his. I don't even know, but he's everywhere now, and he's so good in this movie. This still might be his
Unfortunately, sorry to
best.
cut you off. I think that a fault against this movie is that we don't get Saltburn without this, which is probably a negative. But you know, I don't know. I I think he's excellent in this, and he needs to work with some better filmmakers. But
Yes.
yeah.
And I also really love this movie. It was I think that there are certain actors that just like that he should work with more because they really fit his style and like his like the tone of his movies, and I think that Nicole Kidman is one of them. I
Yes.
wish she worked with her again. I think she is incredible in this, and she and Barry, but especially her, like they understand like what kind of movie they're in, and they're really like working to serve that style more than other actors who worked with him multiple times. We'll get into later. But I think that this is probably like his most directed movie because like there's a like the panning shots,
Yeah.
like
And like
the
really
production
bold
design. Yeah, the
camera
production
work.
design, the way
Yeah.
that everything is so symmetrical, the architecture. I just love everything about it. Like you said, it's probably like his most consistent movie in terms of the tone,
Yeah.
and I really love it.
I feel like this is when people started calling him evil Wes Anderson. Also, I realized that we did this out of order and this should have been before the favorite, but whatever.
Yes.
Um, yeah, no, I like this a lot. As I said, this is probably my second favorite. I would put it very high in A.
I would put it in A too.
I would put it in A as well.
All right, so the S is going to be one of these, probably.
Yeah.
That's fine.
We'll figure it out. Poor Things. This is a film that I loved when I first watched it, and I've subsequently rewatched it twice, and it is lessened for me. I still think that Emma Stone is very, very good. It's like just brilliant character work as a performer. To like, she almost single-handedly builds that character through all the mannerisms and both physical and verbal. Like it's excellent work. Production design, costumes, great. It visually looks incredible. I think that this is one of his most thematically messy films, though. He shoots very big, and I think that frequently it kind of gets lost within itself, and it's kind of trying to be multiple things at once and never really succeeding at being anything. Like it wants to be this big kind of populist crowd pleasing thing that is like this big empowering feminist thing, but then it also wants to be very weird and offbeat, and I kind of think that those two things conflict and get to some very messy mixed messaging by the end of it. I still have a good time watching it, but I do think it's a bit of a problem child in his filmography.
Well, ever since the first time I saw the movie, because I've only seen it twice, so the second time was like 2 days ago, and I was disappointed because what we've been saying ever since maybe Dogtooth, but especially like the Lobster, is that he really has Yorgos has a good handle on tone in his movies and like the directing of actors to make them all fit into his vision. But I don't know what he was doing here because everyone seems to be like in a different movie. I don't know what the hell Mark Ruffalo was doing. And
Yeah.
I about Emma Stone, I like her as an actress, but I don't think that she's a good character actress. I think that she
Interesting.
is at her best when she's like taking aspects of her persona and like making them fit into a character, but I don't think that she's like one of those actors that can really lose herself into a role. Because I like in this movie specifically, like yes, it's a very impressive performance. Like she's doing a lot. She has a lot of mannerisms. There's like a lot of variation, and you can always tell like what part of the movie it's in. But like every time that I'm seeing it, I can only see like, oh, she was rehearsing beforehand, and she knew like, oh, in this scene, I'm gonna be doing this, and I'm gonna be walking this way in this scene, and it never feels natural, and it's not a natural movie, so it shouldn't feel that way, but it doesn't feel, I don't know, like it doesn't. I think I could never really believe her as this character,
Sure. And I think
and
that
it
kind of comes from
really
like
bothers me.
the contradictions within the film. And like again, I don't want to sound super negative. I still enjoy this movie quite a bit. Like it's somewhere between a 7 or an 8 for me. It just isn't quite like the 9 or 10 when I first watched it, where I thought that it was incredible. And like obviously that'll happen when you see it at like a festival with a packed crowd and everything. But yeah, I don't know. I just the more it's definitely the one that soured the most for me the more I've sat with it in these last couple of months since its release. Which is disappointing. So
I don't know.
anyway, Sam, you can gush about it.
It's funny that you call it the problem child, and it's like there's always like the kid that's like a little messy and insane, but like that's always my favorite one. Like I always like that kind of movie. Like this is so fun to me. I absolutely love everything about it. I don't agree that those things that you mentioned contradict each other. I actually do think that they work together well and complement each other into this big sort of intentionally unspecified environment. And that I like it because I think Bella, as Ronaldo said, it's not like meant to be a natural movie. Like for me, the fact that the gears were twisting in every scene in Emma Stone's performance made sense. It's essentially a deconstruction of what it means to be human and alive. And the way Emma Stone plays her is essentially just developing a childhood and an adulthood only while you're an adult in one like physical phase. So to me, it makes sense why the film would seemingly contrast all of those ideas. And I really like it for it. I think it's so well paced and engaging. I think that this is the best character in any Yorgos film to me. I love and relate to Bella endlessly. And I'm glad that both of you, though, despite having issues with it, aren't of the crowd who think that this is a horribly offensive, male gazy, problematic movie, because I've seen a lot of arguments that just seem to be coming from nowhere. Like, Bella isn't disabled. Bella doesn't have a disability. This is a fantasy movie where things happen that aren't supposed to make sense. And people like to complain that the film is doing things with this character that are disgusting and unrealistic. And yes, exactly. That's what the film is doing. That's the point of the film and the tone of the film. And for people to dismiss it and call it a massive mistake and flaw just feels out of context. That's where I have issue with the criticism for this movie. But if you think that this film is trying to do too much, or if it's not as singular and specific as Yorgos' other works, I would agree with that. I just don't take issue with it.
Sure.
For me, this is
Yeah, I think my main issue is I think it could have been great because I like the concept, I like what it's trying to do, but I don't think it
Yeah.
was executed perfectly. And like not any movie, like no movie is going to execute what it's trying to do perfectly, but I don't think it was as successful as it could have been. And
And
like we were talking before about well, I was talking before about Nicole Kidman, and I think that Nicole Kidman, in the mid 2000s, would have been amazing in this role. Like in the time that she was like in Birth and Dogville, like she would have
sure.
killed that role better than Emma Stone could ever do.
And I think it's interesting what I don't know. You talk about it being like this big statement on what it means to be alive, and I guess it feels very kind of overt and simple in a way that it feels like it wants to be more profound, and in a way that I feel like Yorgos has accomplished in some of his other works in much more like subtle and nuanced ways. I don't know. Again, I feel like this is kind of the worst of like his populist phase, where it feels a bit plastic in its messaging and slightly disingenuous because of a lot of the tonal flaws.
Yeah, and that plasticity is specifically like in the scene when like she finds out about all the poor people in the world, and then she has like this mental breakdown. I
Yeah,
don't think
it
that
feels
scene
kind
was
of preachy, I guess.
executed very well.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know. And again, I like in concept, like, I mean, she quotes Marx in the movie, always going to be a fan. But like, it feels like, again, it was designed in a way for it to be broadly accessible, which I think takes away from a lot of the power of what it's trying to say. So
I just think for me, it's just with a film like this, I think it case by case with me. Like, I don't think that cliche or on the nose is necessarily bad. Like, I get
I
being
don't
rubbed
think
the
it's
wrong way
overall
by it.
bad either. I just think in
No,
this
but I
case
think
it is.
I think in this case it works. I think that, like, I guess you guys just didn't feel the vastness of the project in an emotional way that I did, and that's fine. Like, if you find the conflicting sort of tonal vibes that the movie gives disingenuine or annoying or trying to strive for too much, I understand that. But this really is everything that I like in a film at once. Like, I think this is just firing on all cylinders, and I love everything about it.
One last thing that I will say is that one of the things that people praised the most about the movie was the production design, and I wasn't a big fan, and not because I thought
Okay,
it was
I
ugly
disagree
or
with that.
anything like that.
I thought it was
My
incredible.
problem
Yeah.
with it was that it is like very impressive just to look at it, but I don't think that it like differentiated very well between the different places, because it's like very weird and out there in a very samey way between like Lisbon and Alexandria and like all of the places. So I think they could have done something more to creatively differentiate between them.
Sure. Yeah, I don't know. I have a lot of fun with the movie. I think it's very, very funny. We haven't talked about that. Like the screenplay is very, very funny. I do like Emma Stone's performance a lot. I like it as a fun fantasy adventure film. I just think it struggles a bit when it tries to be a bit more. So I would throw it into I put it into C, looking at where the list is now. I think it's weaker than the 4 films above it.
I
So
put it in
put
C as well.
Fine, we can put it in B.
Okay, sure. Where would you put it?
S, but like, I guess that's not happening. Not even A.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I think that that's fair, given all of our opinions that
So
we
it's
have.
like in the
Dogtooth and
same
Dogtooth.
position. Dogtooth and Poor Things are in the same position. Only you two are switched.
Yeah,
Yeah.
basically, yeah.
Yeah.
And then Kind of Kindness, which Ronaldo hasn't seen. We'll have
Okay.
Thomas and I are going to review it in a couple days. I
think this is perfect. I think this should go in C, considering everything that's on the list.
Yeah, I would agree. I have very mixed feelings on this movie. I think I don't know if it entirely works as an anthology.
It doesn't.
I
Do you know what it is?
Each of the individual stories are interesting, but they're shortened in a way that it just completely strips them of nuance. And I think that the bluntness can work, but if you're going to be blunt and you're going to be brute force with your subject matter, you need to give it space to breathe, so that way it just doesn't feel like the audience is getting punched over and over atop the head with what it's trying to say. And I think it is just so kind of painfully overt in that way, to where it gets a bit annoying. And I do like a lot of what it's going for in the broad thematic connections about, it being the kinds, it's the kinds of kindness that we strive for as far as human connection and relationships, and how we strive to fit in with different, parts of the world, and how much we want to be accepted by society and culture. But it just gets a bit kind of repetitive, because there's no space to be allowed to explore these subjects in a meaningfully different or interesting way from story to story. So
Yeah,
I don't know. I was a bit disappointed by it.
I don't agree
Even though
with
I enjoyed
everything.
it. So
Yeah, I don't agree with everything you said, but I agree with most of it. I enjoyed it too. For me, the first story was absolutely the best. No question
Yeah,
about it. It was.
I would agree. I think
It
they
was
slowly
so
got
good.
worse. I think
Yes.
it goes 1, 2, 3. Yeah.
Yeah, the first story was genuinely amazing, and if that was a feature film, great movie.
Great.
Like, it would have been better. And honestly, it's interesting that he went for this, but to me, the anthology just serves no purpose other than, like, I just felt like Yorgos was like, I kind of want to make an anthology with no
Yeah.
real reason, and that's fine.
Like, fair enough, go off, King. But
yeah,
it
just, if you could compare, like, if we're talking about it in this context, it's not going to be on the top. Like,
Yeah.
my attention and patience was thinning as the film went on.
And I think that's an issue with them, the stories getting slowly worse, and him not meaningfully exploring the themes in a different way from story to story.
Yes. And I think that Jesse Plemons is incredible. Like, Jesse, but Emma
Get
Stone,
him in more Yorgos.
Emma Stone, like she was good, but didn't impress me. I did not. She didn't do anything that I didn't see coming. Jesse, on the other hand, absolutely did. Like he was incredible. He literally was giving Philip Seymour Hoffman and Willem Dafoe, and at the same time. So
Yeah.
loved him. He dominated the first segment. No wonder it's my
He,
favorite.
I
He
want,
was the
I want
lead.
to, I want to see him lead a Yorgos feature. Like it
He'd be
would
so
be,
good.
Yes, the
he'd
next
be
one.
excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so true. Yeah.
But yeah,
So
so I agree, and I think that it overall, as you said, lacks a concrete thematic thread. Where you mentioned like the kinds of kindness, sure, but it doesn't have a thematic thread. There really
no,
isn't much relation between the stories, at least not enough to justify the existence of the anthology. But still, I did enjoy the second and third segments. Like they were still very entertaining
I
and well
laughed a
written.
lot. I
Yeah,
had a
I
good
laughed a
time.
lot. But for me, it's like a 7 out of 10 just because the first segment was so strong. But
Yeah.
C in the context of this list, I think we're in agreement.
It rides a lot. It feels weirdly interesting that we're talking about, we've gone through them in order, aside from Sacred Deer and Favorite, but we've gone through them in order. And this almost feels like the inverse of some of his first films, where it does have it has a very strong tone, but it just I don't know, maybe not inverse. I think it may have actually gone full circle, where it kind of has the tone, but it just kind of loses itself in trying to say really anything meaningful. But I don't know, it works better than those. It's definitely engaging. I don't know. I still have very mixed feelings on this film. I just saw it last night, and it was a like 10:30 p.m. showing. So
it ended really late.
Yeah. Got out of there at like 1:30. But yeah, I don't know. I'm still working through a lot of thoughts. Obviously, I have more fleshed out thoughts on the full review, but I was a bit disappointed by it despite having a good time. So I don't know. I think C makes sense. I'm very happy.
I'm the same. I feel the exact same way. Well, I don't know if I was disappointed. Like I didn't expect this to be amazing. Like I knew
Sure.
I had the issues that I had. Like
I guess it's lessons
was
for me. I was hoping that it would stick with me more, but it's gotten weaker over time.
That's totally fair.
Yeah. Okay.
Can we put the Lobster in S? I think that's the most fair agreement here. And honestly, I would probably put it in S myself.
Well, let's rank these three. So I would rank them Sacred Deer, Lobster, Favorite.
I'm the opposite.
I would do the exact same order that they are.
Then perfect. Lobster's
So
number
Lobster.
one. Yeah, as I said.
Cool. So this is our list. The Lobster.
Pretty evenly spread out.
Yeah, the Favorite and Sacred Deer in A, Dogtooth and Poor Things in B, Kindness in C, Alps Kinetta D, My Best Friend in F. All right.
I think that if it was just like my personal one, it would be almost exactly the same, except maybe move Poor Things down one, and that would be mine.
Yeah, I would slide the Favorite down one, the Lobster down to A, and Dogtooth up to S, and that would be it.
I would have the Favorite, Poor Things, and the Lobster in A, in S, and then Killing of the Sacred Deer A, Kinds of Kindness B, and then then the rest is the same. The C through F is the same. So I guess I don't have any. Then Dogtooth would be a B.
Okay. Yeah. So the same. Yeah. Cool.
Pretty much the same.
All right. Well, that is it. That is our ranking of Yorgos Lanthimos films. We will be doing a tier list ranking for Richard Linklater coming up soon. Thomas and I. That should be a fun time. That's 29 films that we went through for that. And plenty more reviews coming up. We will have a review for Kindness up soon, as well as A Quiet Place Day 1, and The Bike Riders, and then next week we got Maxine. I might subject myself to Horizon. We'll see. But all of that coming up soon. Make sure that you follow us on Letterboxd and Twitter if that's something that you're interested in. And I'll put links to both Sam and Ronaldo soon. Ronaldo, was nice having you on. Would love to have you on again for one of these. But that is it. So thank you, everybody, for watching. Stay safe and goodbye.